that by the time the final budget is signed off, we should have a sense which direction it is going, because by, we will be in May, end of May. We should know where we are in terms of expenditure and how many people have signed up. And I don't know whether you have the statistics, how many have already, because whoever is going to use it over the summer must have already signed up. So where, was that taken into consideration? Is it according to your projections, what you had anticipated?
As part of our agreement with the town, we provide monthly financial statements that are reviewed throughout the given month so that we keep the town fully abreast of financial performance. And part of the structure of our agreement is that we realize we're managing your revenues and your expenses, and we take that very seriously, and we want to make sure that there's a tremendous amount of transparency and collaboration with the town on what we're doing, why we're doing it, and what the results are yielding. So we just presented on March's financials, and we'll present again on April's as those are prepared. Each month we'll have a review to understand where we're trending. You bring up a great point. By the time this budget gets potentially approved at the end of May, the picture of the performance of the club will be a lot clearer. Again, that's how we're getting judged, based on our ability to predict what the business will do. I do want to reiterate that the net result, what we call EBITDA from the golf course, we feel is a relationship between revenue and expenses. Both are manageable. Neither is fixed, as you pointed out, and we're very confident that certainly frankly, if we achieve zero net result, we would be significantly disappointed. We're very confident this can be a healthy profit center long term for the town. So you do bring up a good point that by the time the summer comes around and we're approving a budget, which is the unique part of the fiscal schedule, and sometimes we go on a calendar schedule, it's a little bit easier because the season's behind you. But we're very confident that the expenses can be tailored as we understand how the revenues are flowing, if they're different from the assumptions that we laid out.
If you're not able to meet your projections, what happens then? Do we have does the management contract, how long is the management contract with the company?
3 years.
3 years.
3 years. Is there a clause to exit in case they are not able to meet the projection?
Yes.
Sure.
Is there a penalty?
Penalty for what?
For not meeting the see, every time, it is in my experience, every time you're dealing with the public money, and the company is getting paid through the public money, everybody comes in, the rate is always higher as opposed to dealing with a private company. If I was getting a private company to manage the golf course which I owned, I would probably negotiate, but where the public money is concerned, the rates are always negotiated at a higher rate. And that's the nature of business. Whether you are here or you are in a different country, that's the bottom line. Now, what if you are not able to meet those projections, and we have already spent that much money in the management cost of giving fund, over $1.5 million to the company, and then these numbers were based.
Well, you're not giving us the 1.5. We're executing those expenses on your behalf.
Okay, executing, but there's a profit in for is there a separate management fee?
There's a management fee included in the 1.4.
There is a management fee.
Yes. Yes, it's a monthly management fee. It is a fixed fee. There's also an incentive based on variable performance. But one thing I would point out is that our track record as a company and our ability to have been successful and be recommended by other clients is something we're very proud of, and that's based on the performance we provide. We don't look at this as a 3-year opportunity. We look at this as a long-term opportunity. And whether or not that opportunity for us is long-term will be based on the performance that we generate for the town. The town always has opportunities to take a look and decide whether or not we're performing to their expectations, and we want to be held accountable to that. We see this as a mutual partnership. That's why the third-party arrangement is so beneficial, because we're controlling your asset and we're making decisions collaboratively. We're not doing so in a vacuum. We're not doing so without the town's control. So the Country Club of Woodbridge Commission is very, very close to the decision-making that goes on, and we work closely with them and with the Board of Selectmen. And I think you'll see that that'll be the best result for the town long term. Losing control is where it becomes problematic. When you have an operator that is doing things that the town has no ability to oversee, that's when the municipal-private public partnership becomes challenging. And we're happy to let recommendations of clients and other people with whom we work speak for our track record.
lessons for the kids.
We absolutely are. And the first quarter weather, well, Woodbridge didn't take full advantage of it. We would like to say we're responsible for having brought that. Not the rain from yesterday.
My son will be the first to do it.
Good.
Chris Dickerson, 6 Member Street. I have more of a process question. I noticed that the Board of Selectmen proposed budget, the Board of Finance proposed budget, for every single line item is exactly the same. In my recollection in the past, the Board of Finance always reduced the Board of Selectmen recommendations in certain categories by certain amounts. Can you explain why that hasn't been done and if it will be done before the annual town meeting?
We did have a meeting and looked at the Board of Selectmen, well, prior to the Board of Selectmen, Ed, Tony and Karen went through every budget and reduced it to present to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen then went through line item by line item and changed different line items. And at the point in time when we looked at it, we didn't see any areas that we felt we should cut. We weren't going to start nickel and diming $100 here, but for the most part, we were in agreement with the Board of Selectmen and left it that way. Now, we will be meeting again, I believe, Wednesday night to finalize our numbers, but at the point in time when we met, we agreed with the Board of Selectmen's numbers and left it as is.
For every single
Yes.
line item to the dollar?
Yes.
Because in my recollection in the past, the Board of Finance was focused solely on the financial position of the town, and they were much, much tougher on budgets. We're looking at a 6.2% increase in spending for this year, and that's not just the country club. Look at all the line items, and there's 9% for the Board of Selectmen. There's lots of increases. I think there's a lot more money that can be cut out of this budget. I think the Board of Finance needs to go back and do what their job is, which is to be a little bit tougher on the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen's elected. They've got to answer to the people. You're appointed. You've got to answer to the budget. You've got to answer to the taxes. And these are tough economic times. I was really surprised to see so many increases in these budgets, in line items. I was really, really disappointed to see so many increases. I think there's much more that can be cut out of this budget, and I really encourage the Board of Finance to go back and sharpen your pencils and cut some more money out of this budget. Thank you.
Okay. Gentlemen first.
Hi, I'm new in this place and I live at Old Gracebrook Road. This is the first time I've attended the budget hearing, and I share concern of the ladies who stood up first on the Country Club of Woodbridge, because it appears from the budget that we're financing the operation of the clubhouse. Now, as we've heard that the management company has been managing different country clubs in the state, I just need to be reassured that this is a good deal for us. If they have similar projects under this arrangement where the town pays for the expenses of maintaining the clubhouse, and if this arrangement is for the benefit, for our advantage compared with other arrangements that they have with other clubhouses, just to be reassured, we're on the right track.
Woodbury Hills is the other municipal golf course that we operate in the state. It's up in Bloomfield, just north of Hartford. And that structure of the relationship there is identical. The town funds the operation of the golf course from the revenues we collect. Billy Casper Golf is paid a fixed management fee and a variable incentive based on revenue performance. The other two relationships we have, those facilities are privately owned, but the relationships happen to be the same as well. We're managing the owner's liability, and we're performing on a management fixed fee basis, and all of the costs and revenues are the ultimate liability of the owner. So the relationships are the same. And that relationship and that history, it's not just the same in Connecticut, it's throughout our portfolio. It's a very common structure for us. And the reason being is that the ownership maintains control. But it is consistent in our estimates on what it will cost to maintain the club, and how that structure will exist is based on experience with about 80 of our facilities are in that same relationship. Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
I think Michael was up first, if you don't mind.
Michael Luther, Northrop Road. For over 50 years, nobody's asked me to use the microphone. First off, I don't see Chris right now, but I'd like to address a couple of things and remind my fellow citizens. For the past 3 years, we citizens of Woodbridge have enjoyed the benefits that both Amity and Beecher had surpluses. Both of those groups, for 3 years running, made arrangements and agreements with the boards of selectmen and finance that some of those surpluses in each of the last 3 years would be returned to the town, but other portions would be appropriately spent towards capital expenditures, helping both Amity and Beecher to keep down the increases they had to ask for. That's for the past 3 fiscal years. In FY13, those aren't there anymore. The second thing is that we do have savings that the boards of finance and selectmen have addressed as far as FY13 are concerned. Consider, my fellow citizens, these items, and they're only items in a total budget. There's no increase for FY13 in the salt account. We didn't use it. There's no increase in the overtime expenditures for public works to plow the roads. We didn't use it. We didn't have to go into the discretionary funds for that. Yes, there were expenditures when all of us got clobbered by snow on tree leaves. It's the second time we've had that in the last 30 years, and each time has been a blankety blank. But it has happened. I consider that the boards of selectmen and finance, under the conditions and the history behind this, have done very well in coming in at that. It'll hurt me no less than it hurts any of the rest of us in this room and in this town. The last comment is intended perhaps to keep a smile on Matt Giglietti's face. For those of you who have come to a few of these meetings over the years, I'm the tall, white-haired guy who talks about the percentage of our budget annually that goes to debt service. If you look at page 148, let me tell you what my standard is and where we are. My standard is that a town should not spend more than 10% of its operating budget on debt service. That is the standard that the rating agencies also use. And in previous years, I've had frowns on my face, and maybe when he wasn't looking at me, Matt gave a sigh. But if you look at page 148, and I checked this as recently as this afternoon with Tony, you will notice that even with the Amity debt associated with our own debt, we are below 10%, and if you look out at those pages, it is going down. The only reason I ask you to consider that is we do have some things still out there, and they'll always be coming at us. You know the history of this town. You can't have a firehouse till we have a library. You can't have a public works facility until we have a firehouse. Okay, we're Americans. We take the democratic process seriously, and that's how it goes. There's an item coming up after this meeting that I would suggest you stay and listen to. But I'm very pleased with what the town has done. This is the best job, one man's opinion, after 3 years of having surpluses that we could use towards our expenses. Just one last item. Tony assured me this afternoon that the bond issues represented on page 148, to the extent possible and reasonable, have all been refinanced to the lowest possible rates going. Thank you for listening.
Kathy Wick, 181 Raymond Road. I actually had a specific question about the country club budget. The budget that was on the budget book was approved about a month ago, and since that time, a decision was made to open the kitchen at the club and use the grill room, and I believe there were 5 additional employees that will be hired, and that was not part of the original Billy Casper contract. They said they did not want to use the kitchen and those interior areas. So I'm wondering what impact that recent decision will have on this budget.
That's correct. We collaborated with the Country Club Overage Commission, and we were asked to explore whether or not the grill room section only, not the banquet, the rest of the banquet facility, could be isolated and operated really at no additional cost, meaning no capital cost in order to get it started up, and no what would be considered short-term expenses. Clearly, with the report of the building being widely known and the future of that building being as of yet determined, and we were able to determine that we can get into that grill room and essentially clean it up with some seasonal help and get some labor really just based on the operation and the revenues that will be there. One point I would make is that the operation will be pretty lean. Server wages are paid below minimum wage to tip-sensitive employees, and cook wages, we would ultimately have to have that wage anyway as we move forward with recommendations about the long-term tenting option to help support the sale of outings and things like that outside. If we went to an alternate site in a tent or something like that, the wages would still be there for the cook. So I think from an efficiency perspective, we're not gaining much, and we understand that golfers want to sit down inside and maybe have a chance to watch TV or drink a cold beer after the game, after their rounds of golf and stuff like that. We're trying to accommodate that. So that decision was made in collaboration. We are not recommending under any circumstances to try to repair anything that is leaking with respect to the roof, to try to move that banquet business into the banquet room. This is purely taking what we would consider a very limited risk opportunity to see what the response is to the grill room operation in the short term. We opened it last Friday. We had a good day then. We look forward to that, getting a little traction. And my final point on that is that if we feel like the grill operation is not going to be financially beneficial, we have the opportunity to cease those operations immediately and not put ourselves into a commitment. And that's why we've always stayed steadfast in that we would not put any capital improvement dollars into getting in there for something that ultimately might not work out. So I understand your concern, and that's been a big point of discussion with the commission. But we feel like, from an operating perspective, it was a relative indifference as to where we go. And we think let's try to take an opportunity to see what revenues we can drive from an indoor facility, and then move forward away from that if it does not prove to be successful.
Just someone who's been involved with the country club since we acquired it in 2009. I would just like to say that, as you know, we operated with MDM Golf through the end of 2011, and it was decided at that point we put this out for bid, and we formed a golf commission. We have 7 members, and of course I wasn't involved in meetings, although I was kept apprised. Just to reassure the town, Billy Casper Golf has been extremely professional. Their reputation is stellar. They give us excellent information, which we were lacking in the past because we just weren't given it, and we tried. And the experience with Billy Casper Golf so far has been just absolutely wonderful. We have a great deal of faith in Brian. I think those of you who heard him speak tonight, he certainly knows the game. So I think the town is well served by Billy Casper Golf. There are no guarantees. If it starts raining and it doesn't stop, obviously every golf course is going to suffer. But I think we have the best outfit on hand to run this place, and the town is well served by Billy Casper. So I think if we give them a chance, they're going to show that they can live up to the numbers and the predictions they've made. So Again, thank you, Brian. Mike?
Mike Elfenbein, 63 Center Road. I'm just looking for some clarification. So the 1.4 million budget, 1.4 million revenue is to operate the country club, to operate the operational costs. There was a line item, I think it was around 430,000 for debt service. So are we saying that none of the revenue from the golf course will help pay down the debt service on the loan that we spent to buy the golf course?
Well, not directly. The revenue will go into our general fund, but obviously, if the money is there, it'll be used to pay off the debt service. Well, it'll help to pay the debt service. That's not specifically going to be used to pay the debt service. It would go into the general fund, and if our general fund increases because of the revenue, obviously, we could say that it's being used to pay the debt. That's our hope. Our hope is that we do have a surplus which would help with the debt, but not specifically.
And then one other question. Not having gone through every line item in the budget for the golf course, is there money in there for capital improvements at this point? And if not, what are we projecting as might be some of the costs involved?
There's $20,000 for tree work.
Just for the tree work, not for the facility, the buildings or anything at this point. Okay. All right. Thank you.
It's a lot of with the revenue and expense for the country club is neutral, isn't that so? $1.5 million.
In the budget document?
Yes, yes. And it costs $434,000 to service the bond for the country club.
That's correct.
Then the answer and to pay for this country club in a year is $1.9 million. Isn't that the answer to Mr. Helfenbein's question?
The budget plus the debt service, yes.
$1.9 million.
Correct.
Thank you.
Again, as was stated, we're anticipating, based on the numbers, a $300,000 surplus. So,
Does it say anything about a surplus?
it doesn't.
Although it's not in the general fund figures, on page 135, we included the complete summary budget for your review, and that's the complete budget that Brian spoke about, which was alluded to, and that has a total gross income or revenues that are projected, and that was adopted by the boards of commission and selecting and finance. So that's the complete budget. So that, on that page, you'll see the projected budgetary surplus of 298,108.
And this would be the only piece of open space that Woodbridge has ever acquired that presents a revenue stream. So that's the point of this. Whether this will happen or not, we don't know, but we're going to take a chance on it.
Tony at Station Engineering regarding I remember seeing in the global budget that you passed the revenue, the surplus of 300,000. However, on your budget, I see under income or revenue, I see the same number that you had as an expenditure. I don't see it. So how is it a surplus on the actual budget?
I don't think we can build into this.
Well, this is the final budget, right, that you're shooting.
Yeah, but I don't think we can build in a revenue source that we can't guarantee.
Exactly. So I think to shoot it out just now that on page 135, it's there. It's not in your budget. So we're talking about the actual budget now, not the proposed golf course budget, but the actual. And in your actual budget, which the numbers we went through one at a time, it's the same number, income and expenditure. So that's, I don't know, it sounds a little funny to people to figure $300,000 surplus. That's what you're hoping for, but that's not what the budget for, correct?
Correct. Well, there are other items that we have to understand. every number in the revenue end is not guaranteed. There are always
I
possible
think I
increases in the
understand
revenue.
that, but I think we're here for the budget, and the budget you're proposing, the actual numbers that you wrote and that you went through, do not show a surplus. So I don't need to make it sound like there's a surplus. We know we're hoping for one, but that's not what you're counting on here. You're counting on a neutral expenditure.
Well, conservative budgeting would dictate to do that. That's the way you have to do it.
Thank you, and I think that's the way you should be represented.
Okay.
Good evening, I'm Alan Tyler, 184 Ansonia Road, member of the P&Z Commission, former member with Matt at the Finance Board, former counsel to a few different towns. I've been involved for many years in my professional life dealing with municipal budgets. One of the things I recognize is with respect to this country club, and I'm one of the local residents who actually belong to the country club, and I used to be president of Oak Lane before that went and decided to get sold privately some number of years ago. What I can tell you is what I've recognized over the years is that you tend to mix apples with oranges. And I see Mr. Salato there. Operationally, as I understand it, it is a break-even proposition. So outside the open space issue, what everybody has to understand, and there was a vote on that, as I recall, where the attempt by the town, in a failed way, fortune or unfortunate, time will tell, to develop excess property would have gone and I believe be used in order to reduce what would be the cost annually of the bond service. So when we pay mortgages, we pay it over however many years, 15 years, 30 years, but we pay a constant payment. When you pay down a bond issue, for those who don't know, it's a constant principal payment. And that's paid over a 20-year term, and if I recall, $7 million is roughly $340,000 a year for the principal payment. So whether it's open space, forget the operation, we own the property, we're paying for that. It's the first year that this comes due. So the hope was, I believe last year with that failed attempt, to try to go and engage monies to pay down, and it was unsuccessful. We still got to take care of it. So I looked at this page here and I believe that what's been said is very appropriate, which is that in this budget, you do not include a revenue item, you include revenue neutral. So that's most important for everybody to understand. The question of whether or not you can go and get additional sources of income, well, one of it might be this page 135. Additionally, it might be development of the land in a different way somewhere down the road. I don't know what kind of proposals from whom might come about, but I do know that there's excess acreage there, and as you play the first hole, you'll realize it's all to your right toward the Merritt Parkway. So as with this particular item, which is the Country Club of Woodbridge, knowing that a commission's in place, it's vetted with 7 people, they've reviewed it as well as the Board of Selectmen, I feel highly confident that knowing the Billy Casper Group, and I don't know them through personal adventures, but I know that their reputation nationally and with respect to the particular places that they are now in charge of has been excellent. So I want to encourage everybody to understand that, and hopefully we will get a revenue out of it, or else they wouldn't be around. Thank you.
I'd also like to point out something that I brought up a couple of times during the budget meeting. During the process Mr. Timon was speaking about, we heard again and again about the approved 55-number project that was down in the Litchfield Turnpike area, the Woodbridge Village project. And I asked several people if we had projected any tax revenue or any building fee revenue in this budget. And based on recent conversations, there's nothing in this budget for that. There are no plans to develop that at this time. So any thoughts that that was going to happen, it's not happening anytime soon. So I just wanted to mention that if that did happen, we'd have some significant tax revenues, building revenue, but there's nothing in this budget going forward till June of 2013. Any other questions? Okay, I would invite you to stay because we have members of the architecture team to go over the Public Works Garage, and for those of you who don't remember, we've had the Public Works Garage on our agenda since 1987, 25 years, and they certainly deserve a new facility. So
Board of Selectmen gave our committee an agenda to put together a public works that would accommodate the fire department as well as the police department as well as the public works department. I'm Chris Sorensen, I'm chairman of the committee. Jerry Keegan is the architect, and Harold Roth. They're going to make our PowerPoint program together, and I'm going to let Jerry take over from here.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Gerald Kagan. I'm a principal in Rothmore and Kagan Architects in New Haven, Connecticut, former Woodbridge resident, as a matter of fact. It gives us great pleasure to be here this evening to talk to you about this project. Because the hour is so late, we're going to go through it relatively quickly. So if you have any questions, please do not be afraid to interrupt. This project started in 1987, and to date there have been 49 meetings on this project in the town of Woodbridge. And we are finally at the point where we have come up with a project that is the smallest project in town with the biggest vehicles in town. It is also the smallest of all the public buildings that are going to be built in town, and it will service all of the vehicles that provide the emergency services during snowstorms, rainstorms, etc. throughout the town. So let me start quickly by talking about the Public Works facility. In one of the earlier schemes in the Public Works facility, I get this machine to work. I'm doing wrong. Okay, this is actually the area of the Public Works facility. The town hall is right here. The driveway, the parking is there. The actual garage is there. The salt shed is here, and the driveway going down to the lower level is there. When previous schemes had looked at this plan, they had produced a series of drawings for a much larger structure that were housed on the back side of this particular piece of property. When we were retained, we hired the civil engineer who did an analysis for us that showed us that because this property is mainly filled, the best part of the property lies between this line right here and that line, and the rest of the property from this point back is going to cost an incremental amount of money to build on it. Predominantly because the soil area in this area go down to 25 to 30 feet depth of fill, and in this area we go from 4.7 to about 16 feet of fill. So we get the most amount of value for our money at building at this location right in here. This scheme, as you can see, was done earlier by another firm, did not maximize the potential of the piece of property. A second firm was retained, and even though they did a much better job in terms of making the property more useful, they did a couple of things which are very cost prohibitive. Number one, they built an addition right onto an existing building on a wall that is not very structurally sound. So in order to build that particular wall of that addition, you would have to underpin the existing building, again, spending money on something that no one sees and gets no value from. They also built this building, proposed this building on the very edge of where the good soil and bad soil exists, which would mean that there's a potential for differential settlement between the front of the building and the back of the building. This particular building also had doors on this side and doors on this side. So it was very, very inefficient energy-wise in terms of the maintenance of the building. A good piece of architecture should not only sustain itself in its first construction costs, but should be very low cost to maintain over the cost of the life of the project. We went through the analysis of all of the test borings that you can see here, and we actually went out and had the town do 4 more test borings in this location to be sure that there was no rock, which always crops up in Woodbridge somewhere, on this particular piece of property so we could build efficiently. As a result, we came up with a site plan that has the truck washing bay right here, which the town does not have right now, a truck washing bay. The truck washing bay is large enough to accommodate the largest piece of fire equipment that the town of Woodbridge could conceive of buying, as well as it could be used for storage during the periods of time that it is not being used for washing vehicles. We also came up with a single garage facility of about approximately 12,000 square foot footprint that would be at this location right here. That is the smallest footprint of any of the schemes that have been proposed to date. It is also the smallest footprint of any building that the town of Woodbridge owns or will own. The engineers took that particular concept and created our site plan, which has our building here directly adjacent to the salt shed, directly behind the town hall, and we have the wash bay here, And we have a covered garage area here, an open garage to store trucks and vehicles that are not necessarily needed during the season, but to have kick the salt off of them, the rain off of them, the snow off of them, so that they are somewhat protected. The concept of our building was to build the building into the hillside, where we could save money and energy by using the hillside, and to create a mezzanine level in part of the upper part of the building. I'll now turn over to Harold, who will walk you through the building.
Thank you. I'm Harold Roth, principal of Roth Moore & Kagan Architects. We approached the concept of the project in a way to ensure maintenance of the $5 million budget, number one, and make sure that we can reuse, continue to use, and without moving the existing salt sand shed, and also the gas bay, which was very important. We did not want to spend any money on moving that. And one way to continue to look at the most efficient structural approaches was to move the building into the hillside behind the town hall building, where the soil bearing capacity was very, very good. We have the energy efficiencies presented by being adjacent to the hillside and make a very efficient site plan that provides plenty of space for all of the trucks. This is the first floor plan, which is about 230 feet long, contains 13 bays. 3 bays are the maintenance bays, and 10 bays are vehicle storage bays, which are a little smaller in dimension, and the building is approximately 52 feet in width. And we also have a mezzanine taking advantage of the footprint of the building, which is about 12,000 square feet, and the mezzanine is about 4,000 square feet also. And on the mezzanine, we have the facilities for the employees, locker rooms and toilet rooms, and also office. Okay, thank you. We have additional space available to move all of the Department of Public Works offices so that everyone is, the administration of the department is together with the department itself, and it presents a very efficient building type. You'll be able to park in the existing parking area just below Town Hall and walk directly without any steps in a continuous walkway into the mezzanine area, and which is there it is, the walkway which will be at one end of the building. This plan shows how we have studied every single piece of equipment that the department uses. Equipment and vehicles will fit and are very efficient in a very efficient way. This view shows that where the town hall is, the driveway behind town hall, and the walkway that leads directly in the parking area to the office area. The elevations, the middle elevation here shows the vehicle bays, each unit utilizing a 14 by 14 overhead door, and the materials standing seam, mill finish aluminum, which will last almost forever, I think. The walls are poured-in-place concrete on the exterior, and it's a very energy-efficient building with walls facing Town Hall side, or cow wall, which is a sandwich of fiberglass, heavily insulated fiberglass that will be in accordance with the new energy codes, and Terry has a sample there of the material that you'll see there. This is a schematic view of the wash bay, which has a door, an overhead door at each end, and primarily the function of the wash bay is to remove all of the grit and salt from the underside, the undercarriage of vehicles, which hopefully will allow a longer life and therefore save considerable funding for extending the life of these expensive vehicles used to plow the roads. This is a view that will traverse the building for you. It's a very simple utilitarian building with steel trusses, no finishes requiring any painting or maintenance.
When you know we have a glitch, technological glitch, no matter how long we plan it, how many times we do it, something always happens every time.
May I take the opportunity
Please,
to ask
sir.
a question?
Please, sir.
In the wash unit,
Yes, sir.
where does all of that go and how is it treated?
It'll be recycled. All of the fluids will be in a reserve tank, and it will be reused now. We're just starting to get into the design of the equipment and selection of what will be used, but it'll be a very efficient, sustainable system.
Will it be recycled on site or tank cloth?
On site.
And the other part of that question, because I am a conservationist myself, all of the water that will come off the vehicles in the service bays and in the truck bays will be going into a trench drain. That water will then go into an oil separator system that will separate the oil from the water, and that water will then be pumped into a tank and taken off site, so that we will continually reinforce the quality of the urban soil next to the property by not influencing it with any of the salts or chemicals that come out of the particular process one way or the other, sir.
Thank you.
And just so that you also are aware, there are two other features which I'll fill a moment with. Number one is we hope to have gas at the property line, so that we'll be buying the least expensive kind of fuel that can be bought to service the building. And number two, the garage is so designed that every piece of it is separately temperature controlled. For instance, the storage bays with the trucks will be no warmer than 40 degrees. The service bay will be heated only to 70 degrees and will not be air conditioned, while the offices across the top of the temperature will be air conditioned. So we've got a utility system there that does that. One of the other features that we have in the building that is really absolutely critical is we have a air evacuation system, because it is a garage with so many vehicles, that should a carbon monoxide incident occur and the doors be closed, that building will evacuate all the air out of it in 30 seconds. So that there is no chance of anyone having risk of any carbon monoxide or other kind of toxic situation that could take place. I don't think we're going to be able to get you the slide that shows you the wonderful fly-through that Molly did at the building, which was really incredible. But maybe, Molly, we can go on to the balance of the presentation and talk about the budget. Let me share with you what we did about the budget. We went out to 3 different. Oh, you got it. Can you fly it, Molly? We went out to 3 different cost sources. One was a professional cost estimator, one was a pre-manufactured building component contractor, and one was a general contractor. We had them all price all of our drawings at exactly the same time. The prices came in within a very few dollars of one of each other. And we have a budget today presented to the town that is inside the concept. There's right there. This is the budget. And I'll just run down for you for a second. Sorry about that. So we have all of the construction costs coming to a total of $3,400,000. And we have a budget using we have estimated approximately 8% for general conditions, 8% for fees and contingencies, a 20% contingency on top of that. We have $850,000 of contingency in this budget. And then we have all the soft costs that go with it as well, the fees and the bonding costs, etc. We have $350,000 of cash on hand from this steep grant, and we have $700,000 cash on hand from the insurance proceeds. So the actual net cost of the town is $4,942,000 within the $5 million budget that we were given in order to produce the building. In effect, we have created a situation where we have produced for the town the smallest building in the whole town complex. We have that. There you go. You'll see here, this is the firehouse, 23,000 square feet. The center meeting building, 49,000 square feet. The town hall, 18,000 square feet. And the library, 27,000 square feet. Our whole building is only 16,000 square feet, including the mezzanine. So we are the smallest building in town, and it is being delivered within the budget. You think you can take a shot at it? Okay, let's walk you through this real quickly. It's sort of cute. Come on. This is the actual building. Okay, I'm not going to get it. Okay. Anyway, I don't want to take any more time. It's getting late. It's 9:30. So if anybody has any questions, I'll be glad to respond to them one way or the other. Terry, do you want to say something?
No, I think that the committee has worked diligently in trying to discern what the smallest building that would work to make public works be able to thrive. And I think that we certainly have a good candidate here, and I think it will serve as well.
Okay, any questions?
It's nice to see a plan that would get all of the public works offices together, rather than some space in the center building and some in the downstairs of town hall. That would be very helpful to have them all in one place.
And when you go get your permit, you can go to one spot, you can park your car, you can walk on a handicapped accessible ramp to get to that location. And as Terry says, he put the band back together.
And Ed will appreciate that extra room being available.
That's true.
And the spaces that are vacated and available now for other uses in the town are not included in the budget. So they're free use.
Any other questions? I thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.
To shop, and then I take her down to the 5 and 10. There's nothing too good for my baby. Baby likes a limousine. I show her one in a magazine. There's nothing too good for my baby. Baby wants lots of love. Baby gets lots of love. Baby wants petting, baby gets petting, that's what I plenty of. You I give, yes sirree, I'm no fool, I just gave her me. There's nothing too good for my baby. She wants a pearl, she told me once, so I ate oysters for months and months. There's nothing too good